A-D-N.
It's HeadphonesNeil!
What's up, guys, and welcome back to the HeadphonesNeil reviews. I'm your host, as always, HeadphonesNeil, with a little bit of a later review than usual. I was hoping to get this episode out before the Memorial Day weekend, but I just ran out of time, and it would have been a rushed episode, and a 4-minute update just didn't work out in the schedule even, so here I am with a little bit of delayed response, or delayed podcast episode. But with that being said, I will have a couple of other extra updates in the middle of for this review, just to make up for being a little bit late. So with that being said, I did have a chance to watch last week's episode of The Walking Dead: Dead City. So this is season 2, episode 3. Why did the Mainlanders cross the river? We have Maggie and her group now trying to cross the river in the boat, and then Negan and those guys fighting back. They implement Negan's strategy, but he does leave a hole in their defense, or in the attacker's attack or whatever, so that his daughter Maggie and I guess Herschel can escape, I think it was. And so with that being said, I'm not sure if the other guy who was with him figured that out, or was onto him and was going to tell the boss lady about that, or that's why he ended up dying. But he ended up dying, I guess, in the episode, so Negan's secret is secure. So it does seem like Negan is trying to play both sides of or act like his old self in order to gain their trust and do that, so that he can mount a proper defense, offense, escape, whatever, with people that he knows. And is now that Maggie, his daughter, and Herschel are there, at least with his daughter, he has an extra person, so 2 is better than 1, and then he can try and have Maggie and Herschel also sign on. Herschel might not, Maggie may, or at least Maggie, or if he frames it along the lines of, well, Maggie, if you help me escape, then you can do what you want with me or whatever, and all that. I say all of that not having seen episode 4 yet, but so we'll see how much happens in the next episode to cover that. But the sequence was very well done in my opinion, especially with the Negan stuff and doing the attack so that at least he can take out half of the enemies. It does give more strength to his captors, but if he gains their trust, then at least he can start wearing them down that way. And now that he does have more backup with people he knows potentially, then at least there's that, and he has more people on his side to at least mount an escape, or at least get messages off to them, and they can make their attack accordingly. On a side note, I have been binge watching Big Bang Theory on the side just to get through the entire series. So with that, I didn't realize how many seasons there were in the show. So the 12 or whatever seasons that it has were a lot more than I thought there were. Yeah, so 12 seasons. The first few, it starts at 17, goes to 23, then tops out at 24. But I didn't realize that there were 12 seasons of the show. So a lot of the stuff that I remember from early on in the show weren't as early as I thought. And then things like, I thought we met Amy Farrah Fowler sooner than, or before we met Bernadette, but that was after. I thought Howard's and Bernadette's wedding was a lot later, but that was early as well, or within the first 5 seasons. And then same thing with the space stuff. So a lot of the stuff I thought was later in the show is actually a lot earlier. So with that being said, I'm still binge watching through all the episodes, all the entire show. So I think I did like the first 5 seasons in a matter of like 3 weeks. It does help that the episodes are all only like 18 to 20 minutes long, so it's easy to get through them. So even though it is 24 episodes in 12 seasons, if you match it up to shows like Stargate SG-1 or Psych, it's easily just half that, or even less, because they're only 18 minutes, so it's probably even like a third of that. So it's really only maybe 6 or 7, maybe like 5 or 6 total seasons of the show, spread out over shorter episodes, so they can get in more content and change the topics a lot more frequently and gets more stuff in. So I am now done with season 5. So we have Bernadette and Howard's courtroom wedding. We have Leonard and Penny back together tentatively. Sheldon and Amy are now at that stage in the relationship where Amy wants Sheldon to move on, so more growth on that. Kind of basically the stuff up to the haircut episode. And we have the explanation for what happened to the elevator, so all of that stuff. So the early stuff now I'm done, and I'm slowly getting into the part of the show where I think I might have been watching it regularly early on, and then I kind of fell off for whatever reason. So if anything, I may have watched certain episodes on or off here and there, I think, and this is excluding the series finale, which I did specifically watch. But a lot of the stuff now has been slowly getting to the point where I don't remember certain episodes, or more and more of certain episodes. So I'm predicting within the next couple of seasons I will not have seen any of them, or if I did, it'll be just like, well, whatever episode happened to be on TV at the time. So now I'm getting into the second half of the show, more or less, with season 6, and seeing where it goes from there and how the rest of the show plays out. I don't really remember too much of what happens by the end, aside from Amy and Sheldon get old and then they're going to one of their kids' sporting events or graduation or something like that. So even that I don't remember. But I am powering through that, getting as much of that watched as I can. So that's kind of all the update I have for now. I'm kind of going to still present it like everything else, where I do want to give the show an all-encompassing review, but on a related note, it's one of those things where I'm enjoying the show and I'm kind of relating a lot to a personality between Raj and Sheldon. It's easy to see how Leonard doesn't get as frustrated as he should, and then all the stuff with Howard. Although I do kind of wish we had more Howard, but I'm enjoying that the introduction of Amy and Bernadette, and then I don't remember what happened to Raj specifically, so that's kind of bothering me as far as what happened with him. So I'm guessing that they're going to resolve that later. I do remember something with and I forgot the girl's name, super skinny, big eyes, kind of anime looking, but I remember her kind of dating Raj for a couple of episodes, or maybe just the one where she's super quiet and freaks out because Raj thinks it's going really well or whatever. But maybe that's something that they focus on in the second half of the show, that more on Raj's stuff since he's been single for so long and all that. But overall, I'm enjoying it now, so I'm not sure why I never finished, or it's just maybe it was because it was such long seasons and so many episodes week after week, it just kind of fell off for me. But with that being said, I'm watching it now, so I can't wait to see where we go from here. As far as the Grand Theft Auto San Andreas update goes, I finished the sections in the desert where it deals with flight training, one of my pet peeves of video games, especially on mobile. I mean, I have trouble with flying in video games in general. I don't know if it's just because part of it, I'm sure it's because it's me. I have enough trouble on just regular running around in cars, and then if you add an extra dimension with flying to it, that kind of makes it a little bit harder for me. So you'll see when you watch the video for the flying lessons how much trouble I had with that, whereas other people, it was super simple. So anything that has to do with flying, I kind of want to add a disclaimer of bear with me, it's going to get tedious, it's going to get long. But it's one of those things where if you've seen my gameplays, you know that I present my gameplays as is. So if it's something that I have no trouble with, it's super fast. But if it gives me a lot of trouble, then you're going to get all my failures in that as well. So you get that here as well with flying, just an extra level of complexity for me personally. But you get to see just the general mechanics of the flying and the game and all that. Even in the definitive edition, I never really got to the flying levels for the original version of GTA San Andreas, but in the definitive edition, it wasn't terrible. It's just one of those things that gives me a trouble to do in video games. So there is that, but I'm glad that now that we're done with that, we are now in the San Andreas portion of the, or not San Andreas, but the Las Venturas part of the game. So I can't wait to see how the Las Vegas, or what basically looks like the Las Vegas section of the game looks like. But based on the initial look, they did a very faithful recreation of Vegas as best they could. So you have Luxor, you have Mirage, you have all the various designs of the casinos, but with different names to, I guess, minimize the copyright or not have to pay as much in fees, or keep the hotel but not the name because it's cost too much for the rights. But they were able to or at least like just pay the royalties, say, hey, we're going to use the likeness in our game, but we can't afford the name, so we're going to use just the likeness portion. And maybe they were able to get around just to that part. So initial thoughts is it looks like it's going to be an interesting level dealing with the mob and things like that. So I can't wait to see what we have there. On a semi-tangent though, so for the rest of this episode, it's going to be stuff that's kind of, or one of them is going to be a setup for the next gameplay that's coming up after GTA San Andreas. And the ending is a test that I was finally able to do now that I've had a chance to play with a hardware upgrade that I had, or did. So I want to get the easy thing out of the way. So I had a chance to restart my Xbox Game Pass subscription because I really wanted to see if Doom: The Dark Ages is as good a game as they say. Not to say for me that Doom Eternal was a bad game, but for me, Doom 2016 was a really good game as a reboot in the Doom franchise, bringing in additional lore, better game mechanics and visuals, and essentially taking Doom 3 to the next level and kind of expanding a lot on the Doom universe. And so I was able to get through Doom 2016. I really enjoyed it. I like the mechanics, the glory kills, and the just the general gameplay and performance and the story and all of that stuff. And then my problem came in with Doom Eternal because they kind of changed up the gameplay where they made it more all about rushing and running and gunning, or ripping and tearing, versus strategy and level exploration and discovery and things like that. So as of this recording, I was able to get through the first 2 chapters of Doom: The Dark Ages, and it feels like they're not taking away from the Doom Eternal idea of gameplay, but they're going back to more like a mix between Doom 3 and Doom 2016, where it's more about the story and the gameplay and the exploration and that sort of stuff. So for my initial review, hot take, first impressions, and all of that, Doom: The Dark Ages is very much a mix of classic Doom as far as level exploration, design, or more like level exploration, strategy, discovery, looking around, and that sort of thing. The visuals are very reminiscent of Doom 3, but built in the Doom 2016 model. So when you're going around the first few levels of Doom: The Dark Ages, it feels very much like Doom 3. So it's almost like they took that template of Doom 3 and said, okay, well, let's take it back to classic Doom. Let's brighten it up a little. Let's go outside, inside, to different areas and different map ideas. But let's do it in the Doom 2016 model, brighten it up, make it visible, not quite so dark and horror based as Doom 3. But then also expand on the lore and the story and all of that stuff that we did in Doom 2016 and Eternal. And so we get the Dark Ages. And so overall for me, I am enjoying it. We do still have the attack the gameplay basics for mechanics. So you have glory kills, you do have the extra joystick. So or if you have the extra joystick and buttons or whatever, you still have the ability to do your usual weapon attacks with your gun, but you also use your left arm in the game for your shield. So whether it's blocking and charging or throwing the shield, you have that extra option for your offhand usage. But then you also have you can use the right joystick for glory kills. So once your monster turns purple, then if you use your right joystick select button, then you'll do the attack. You'll get things like shield, or increase your shield strength, your health, ammunition, ammo, and all of that stuff. So all of that stuff is still there, but they've slowed it down and toned down that part of it from Doom Eternal. So you do still have, attacking or hordes of attacking enemies and things like that, but you're not doing that so much as on a constant basis, because of course you're going to be onset by enemies, but it's going back to the strategy of, okay, what are you going to do in every single situation that's a little bit different from the last, and less about it's less about just hordes of enemies. You do have level progression, so you have various enemies showing up, and then you have mid-level bosses, so you have Mancubi showing up and things like that. But then you also end the level with boss fights or mini boss fights, so it's not necessarily as easy as a mid-level boss, but it's a little bit harder. So you do get bonus things for upgrades and things like that. So for the first two chapters, I am all in the game, and I do want to play more of it to see how it goes, see if I can finish it. Not that I had an easy time with Doom 2016, but for me, I was able to get through it versus Doom Eternal, where it was all about ripping and tearing right off the bat. You have hordes and hordes of enemies, and it was hard to see where to go and what to do and all of that. And so basically for me, I gave up. I couldn't get through the initial parts of the game. So I'm like, all right, well, if I'm going to have this much trouble on the first level, then it's only going to get harder later in the game. So I'm not going to continue. I'll admit that I gave up. So with that being said, once I'm done with Doom the Dark Ages, I might go and give Doom Eternal another chance. I mean, it's possible that I just wasn't ready for Doom Eternal and I need to give it another crack. So for that, I will try and go back and give it another chance after the Doom the Dark Ages and see if I can get past the initial levels. Maybe with a little bit more experience in the game and all that, I can do better or handle it a little bit more now than I could at the time. I think maybe if I can do it now versus play it better now versus 5 years ago, then that might be all that it's needed, is that 5 years of Doom mod experience, other video games, the Dark Ages and all that, then maybe that's all I need. So off the bat, as far as ranking goes for the new versions of Doom, I would probably say Doom 2016 because I finished that, Doom the Dark Ages just because I was able to get past the initial couple of levels, and then Doom Eternal. So we'll see how the Dark Ages goes and then take it from there. But once GTA San Andreas is done, I'm going to jump right into regular gameplay videos for Doom the Dark Ages, and I'll have my final review for GTA San Andreas coming in the next couple of weeks as well. And so to round out this particular episode, a couple of weeks ago I did upgrade my cell phone from the OnePlus 10 Pro to the OnePlus 13. So the first couple of weeks have just been daily usage of the device. How does it hold up as far as performance, battery life, general features, and all of that. There's not too much different from the 10 Pro because they are both running on Oxygen OS 13, the OnePlus version of Android 15. So not too much difference there as far as just UI and features and all of that. But the main difference does come in two fronts, the battery life and performance. So battery life is right off the bat better because it's a new phone, new battery, new device, all of that stuff. But it's also a bigger battery, so it's a 6,000 milliamp hour battery on the OnePlus 13 versus, and I'm looking this up as I go, I didn't make a note of it, but on the OnePlus 10 Pro, it has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, so a slightly bigger battery, but enough to the point where under regular usage, so basically just using it to make phone calls, text messages, music, podcasts, a little bit of video watching and stuff like that, it does last all day. I've noticed that starting at a full charge in the morning. By the end of the day, I'd probably say I'm at around anywhere from 40 to 60%, depending on how much I did. Closer to the 45 to 60% range versus the lower end of 40%. But comparing that to the OnePlus 10 Pro, using it now, the 10 Pro, if I started a full charge, I'd be at about a 40 to 50% if I was lucky by lunchtime. So, unplugging around 6 o'clock, by noon, I'd be at 40 or 50% if I was lucky, lower if it was a little bit more usage. So right off the bat, there's that. But then again, it's a hard comparison to make because I want to say the 10 Pro was doing that, not quite that. I was probably at 40 or 50% by maybe 3 or 4 o'clock, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock when I first got it. So, and I'm going off of memory, so it's one of those things where it's equivalent performance and battery capabilities. So, if it was the same size battery, I probably could have gotten to 4:30 or 5 o'clock on the 10 Pro as well. So, not too much of a up or down there, just so far battery life is good. Performance is also very, very snappy between a mix of Android 13 and the general specs of the 13 with the latest Snapdragon Gen 2 or 3 processor and all of that stuff. So, or sorry, I think I keep saying Android 13, but Android 15. So as far as the OS goes, it's the OnePlus 13, Android 15. But with the latest Snapdragon Gen whatever processor, the 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage, and all of that stuff. So overall, very good performance, very snappy, very quick. So overall, I'm liking that. The one thing I didn't get a chance to test until the Memorial Day weekend, or test it properly, was the camera. Just because I never really got to a point where I could go out to the park or to a lake to test it out at various times in the day or anything like that. So with the Memorial Day weekend, I did go visit Chicago for a couple of days just to go, and I haven't been there for a long time, but I didn't really want to go for an extended period of time. So I had a chance to spend the afternoon in downtown Chicago, so see the Bean and go on the Riverwalk, things like that. I had a chance to take a few photos. Luckily, it was a nice sunny day with a few clouds in the sky and stuff like that, so it was super easy to test the camera under a normal situation. And overall, it's a very good camera. I like the improvements that they made since the 10 Pro as far as the collaboration with Hasselblad. General, just taking pictures was easy, point and shoot, every so often focus a little bit, but I didn't do anything too different versus what I was doing with the 10 Pro, and in general, it just worked. It was very easy to use as far as that goes. I do like the HDR mode on the for video recording, so you get a better capture of video there. But for me, it feels like there's that at the loss of the 10-bit color mode in the camera on the 10 Pro. So for me, it's kind of a loss because I would have liked that they keep the 10-bit color option in the 13 camera, and maybe it's something that they'll reintroduce with a future update or something. Maybe it's something that they couldn't do at the time, but hopefully they re-add that back in. But if they don't, you do have the HDR camera mode on the video recording side, so you can record a video at 4K 60 frames per second up to 120 and do the HDR video recording. The other benefit on the video camera is you can now record videos at 8K and 30 frames per second. The 10 Pro maxed out at 24 frames per second, so it did look kind of weird and slow and janky, so there is that. I didn't have a chance to test that because I don't think YouTube supports 8K videos yet, or it's not widely available. It's not a widely available thing, so I think at some point I am going to try that. And then the other feature of the 13 is that the front camera does now support 4K 60 frames per second video recording. So one of the things I was thinking about was maybe doing some more vlogs or something with that, or doing the podcast with that again. But I haven't decided on that part yet, but there is that feature. So that's really the basics of the camera and video recording. The regular photography with the camera is good. It does miss the 10-bit color, but you do have enhancement on the processing, so it's not something you generally will miss. But if you can tell the difference between a regular photo and a 10-bit photo or 10-bit color photo, then you will notice the difference. As far as the expand mode goes, the upside to that was I do like the reintroduction of the macro version of the expand, so you can zoom all the way out and make a wider angle expand photo. But they also introduce a zoomed in photo, so you can zoom in and do a expand on a specific region if you want to do that. So I thought that was pretty cool. But the main downside I had is that the color seems a little bit on the dark side. So if you take the picture, you may have to lighten it up a little bit if it comes out dark, or you have to like frame it properly and make sure there's enough light. Otherwise it does seem a little bit dark, which I thought was kind of annoying. But it's one of those things where if you don't use that mode very often, or you have a chance to play with it a little bit to make it brighten it up a little bit, then there's that. But just know they may have to spend a little bit of extra time to use that mode to get the picture that you want without having it look out of focus or dark or anything like that. And the same thing goes with master mode, but that is actually more on the professional side, or like it says, the master side of photography. So you will get very good pictures, but the problem is that it is also on the darker side. So you'll have to do some editing after the fact to brighten it up or enhance the colors or things like that. But that gets more into if you have the time to do photo editing, color enhancements, and things like that, but you want the better quality picture, then the master mode is for you. So it's not really built much like the X-Pan, I guess, for the OnePlus 13 for point and shoot photography. If you just want to do point and click photography, I recommend sticking to the standard camera for photos and then using that with the macro or zoomed out, zoom in, and all that. And then the video camera video camera is fine, but if you can have 4K 60 frames per second videos with the HDR mode on. So it is one of those things where that's more on the point and shoot side. So you can get good quality videos there and good quality photos from the camera side. But if you want to get into more detailed photography and photo editing and ISOs and shutter speeds and all that, then you can spend more time in expand mode and master modes, or expand and master modes. But just know that you may have to spend more time away from point and shoot and setting up your shot and framing and shutter speeds and all that stuff and ISOs and all that stuff to use those modes, unless they come out with an update that improves the camera captures on those modes for point and shoot, but then leave the professional modes and features there if you do want to manipulate that stuff as well. But so overall for me, the phone and the cameras are really good in the OnePlus 13. They continue the improvements in the phone specs and abilities and all that stuff. So as of this episode for the OnePlus 13 camera, I do recommend staying in the standard photography mode for photos, and then for the video camera and recording, you can set the mode to 4K 60 frames per second and HDR to have that extra capabilities. I do want to test to see the 4K and 120 frames per second mode with HDR to see what YouTube does with it. Even though it does max out at 60 frames per second, I want to see if it has the same issue as Google Photos as far as randomly slowing down the photos, or videos, or if Google Photos now has the ability to handle the 4K 120 frames per second without randomly slowing it down. And but that's a side digression on my part. But for the video camera, 4K 60 frames per second HDR mode on is good. For photography, using the standard photo mode or the portrait and all that stuff. I didn't get a chance to play with I played a little bit with the dual mode camera where you can take a video with a front and back camera at the same time. That works as expected. I don't have a sample to show you. It was just playing around while I had a few minutes. And then I didn't have a chance to play with the time-lapse mode where you can take, extended pictures where they'll take a video at, for a few seconds, like 4 seconds up to 12 or whatever, and it'll combine that into a high quality image. That works, with evening shots if you're trying to take pictures with nighttime lighting or halogen lights or whatever, with, on street signs or whatever, and it comes out all sparkly or whatever. The time-lapse mode will do this kind of zooming in effect to take the picture and then combine them into a flat image. So it takes a picture to take out those flares and the lens flares or whatever, and just take a picture of the sign. So no answer for that. And like I said earlier, Xpan and Master modes are good, but you do need to spend some time finagling at the moment, unless they make some changes in the future to make it more point and shoot, but then also leave the settings if you want to manipulate it. So as of this recording, those two modes are more for professionals. If you're comfortable or want to practice changing various settings like ISO and shutter speed and aperture and stuff like that, then go for it, and those modes are good. But for point and shoot photography, it's not quite ready yet. You can use it, but you will need to go into like Snapseed or Google Photos to use their HDR modes or accentuate or dynamic or whatever to enhance the colors a little bit so they're more vibrant and all of that stuff. But it's not something that if you don't like to do photo editing or anything, then they're not really the modes to use yet, unless you happen to get a good photo that is at a level that you like and is good for sharing, that's not too dark, not too saturated or anything like that. So with that being said, that's actually all there is for this particular episode. So if you have any questions, comments, feedback, or anything like that, all of the social media sites that I'm on are linked on the website at HeadphonesNeil.reviews. If you have any questions and gameplay videos, podcast episodes, and all of that stuff can be found on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/PatelN01. Podcast subscription links, if you prefer it in a podcast client of choice, are also on the website, along with all the other related links at HeadphonesNeil.reviews as well. And then if you want to check out the photos I took and a couple of videos, the videos are up on the YouTube channel already. And the link to the show notes will have a link to that blog post, but the blog post is at PatelN01.com for the Chicago pictures, but also past blog posts as well. But with that being said, that's all there is for this particular episode. So as far as the next episode, it'll be the usual Walking Dead Dead City update. So we'll see what happens in episode 4. The GTA update as far as gameplay, we're approaching from what it looks like, the final section of the map, or the final section of the game before we get into the end game of it. So there'll be that, and then if I have a chance to watch enough Big Bang Theory, then that update as well. If anything, I might do a partial review or just say, hey, I'm still in the middle of season 6 or 7, or depends on wherever I get through. But there'll be that update, and then whatever else I have a chance to watch along the way. But that is all for this particular episode. Thanks for tuning into this longer than usual episode, and until next time.